Hey guys, Chris from Provo Beast Audio Installation, and in today's video we're doing front door speakers and dash speakers on this 2023 Ford Transit. Now in this install we're going to show you how to remove the door panel and A-pillar, pull out the factory speakers, we'll head to the bench, show you the new parts we're installing including the speaker, bracket, and harness adapters. We'll come back here to get everything installed. Let's get started. Now on this Transit, this is as far open as the door is going to get, so we'll do our best trying to record this so we can make it as easy as possible for you at home. Now to get started here, there are screw locations here in the grab handle, in the door handle. There's also one right here. There's one in the pocket down below and two underneath the door panel and one up here in the very left-hand corner and one behind the reflector. There are a ton of screws in this door. Once those screws are out, the rest of the panel is just held in with clips, so we're going to go through each one. Carefully take this one off. Here's your first 7mm screw. Right here, there's a 7mm as well. Now behind this little panel here, there's also going to be a screw. I open this up with a pick tool. I'm going to just work this little cover off. Couple of clips. Now this one isn't a 7mm, it's a T20 Torque screw. Go and remove that. Also down in this pocket is another little panel to remove to expose another screw. This one's a 7mm. Next here we have this little reflector that carefully needs to come off. It slides this way. And that's going to expose the 7mm way back in there. Further down in the door, you have another T20 Torque screw. And finally, here at the bottom, two more 7mm screws. So with all the screws now finally removed out of the door panel, we have a panel popping tool. You can use a vinyl panel tool. But basically, we need to separate the panel from the door itself. Well, that just popped even with a nice little tug. Now back behind here, here's the main cable that goes to the door handle. There is a little lever that you can pull to unsnap it. Basically on the back of this right here, you're going to have this that pulls on down. Right there. And that releases the cable from the door panel. And then you're going to have some various harnesses depending on your trim. All of them have a little tab you push in. And it's going to slide on out. There's a little tab. They're all pinned differently. And they all go in their specific location. With the door panel now off, that gives us great access to our 6.5 factory speaker. Now the first thing we can do is disconnect the harness to the speaker. That comes on out. And then it's going to be three 7mm screws. Okay, here's our factory speaker. So at this point in time, let's grab this speaker, let's head to the bench, show you the parts that we're going to need for our install. Alright, so we're at the bench now. The parts that we're using in today's install, first and foremost, are the speakers the customer's chosen to go with. These are the Alpine 2nd generation Type S speakers. These are the S2-S65C. Brand new design as of this year that came out by Alpine. These are 6.5-inch component speakers, meaning the tweeter is separate from the mid-range driver, where a coaxial generally means that the tweeter is mounted within the center of your mid-range. In this case, because we're following basically what's replicated here in the factory locations, we have a mid-base in the door and a tweeter in the A-pillar, and we're going to do just the same with our new component set. Now, in order for us to mount these in the factory locations, we do need some harness adapters and a bracket. Now the bracket that we're going with is the Pack Audio FSB 1502. Metro also makes a version as well. They come in pairs. We've already done the passenger side, but basically it's a bracket that mimics the factory setup as such, and it'll bolt up in the same location. Now, like I said, you'll get one for each side, and harness wise we need the Metra 72-5602. Now, like mentioned before, everything comes in pairs, so you can do both the driver and passenger side as well. Now, we're going to focus on the mid-range. We're going to get this in the door. Then we'll do part 2 here and take apart the A-pillar to get our new Alpine Type S tweeter mounted in that factory location. Now, the reason why we specifically went with these Alpine Type S component set speakers is the tweeter crossover design. This component set doesn't require a big bulky crossover or a shared crossover network to send separate frequencies to your mid-bass and your tweeter. The reasoning why we went with this specific set is for the simple crossover design, because the door has the mid-bass and the tweeters in the A-pillar, and in order to pass wire from that door through the A-pillar, there's just a lot of extra work if you have to use a shared crossover network. Since this has its own passive crossover built into the basket of the speaker, and the tweeter has its own inline crossover, the component set like this is a heck of a lot easier to install in an application like a Ford, because we don't have to share a crossover network. Now, our bracket here does have tabs on the inside, generally for a 6-inch speaker, sometimes an oversized 5 1/4. A lot of the times you have to break these off in order for your 6.5 or 6 3/4 inch speaker to sit flush, because the basket will require that extra space. But in this design of this Alpine, it actually still sits flush and centers the speaker quite nicely. So we're going to keep those inner tabs in, and we lined up the holes here. We're going to use the included hardware with our speaker to go ahead and get these mounted. Now, if you find that the holes don't hold the screws well, you can put the little nutserts on the back side of the screw just to give it a little bit more security. The orientation of the speaker, basically the bigger wings go up top and then the smaller nub goes at the bottom when we mount it in the door. Our speaker harness is actually on the outside of the door panel, and it comes from the top side. So when we mounted up our speaker, we put our terminals up top, but there's nowhere to pass our wire harness through. We don't want to pinch it back behind the bracket. So we're going to go ahead and drill a small hole in the speaker bracket just so we can easily pass our wires on through. Now we're going to grab our harness adapter. We're going to take these an extra step and lume them with some high temperature testa tape just to give it a little bit more protection so it doesn't chafe within the bracket. Connect our mid-range to the terminals on the back of the speaker. Just like so. Okay, so at this point in time, our speaker is ready to go. We can go get this mounted in the door. Go ahead and connect our harness. Plugs right on in. This is an excellent opportunity to sound in the door or put on some fast rings by Stinger. There's a lot of opportunity to improve the sound quality of the speaker, especially with any potential road noise that may pass through the panel itself. But at this point of time, we are done. It's always a good idea to check and test your speaker to ensure it's working properly. Once you confirm it is, go ahead and reassemble the door panel in reverse order. Now for this screw, since that's hard to get in, if you put a screw and put a piece of napkin in between that, it'll actually hold the screw in your socket, and then it allows you to get it in place before you tighten it down. All right, so the door panel's all done. We've got all our screws in where they were before. At this point in time, let's turn our attention over to our dash tweeters. Now for the tweeter, it's actually really easy to get these tweeters out. Just kind of squeeze up here. These come off super easily, probably easier than they should. And then behind it, it's going to be two 10mm bolts. Just like so. Now the rest of the panel is actually just held in with clips. Now I'd like to pull the weather stripping down a little bit, kind of get behind it, and that's it. So what we're going to do now is just kind of wiggle it on out, and there'll be a harness on the tweeter. Same technique, pushing the little locking tab, and the panel comes free. All right, so here at the bench, here's our OEM tweeter. Now it's just held in with 3 clips, and you can kind of use a flathead screwdriver to push in the tabs. We're going to try to keep this outer bracket intact while removing the tweeter. So we're going to push in the tabs, just slowly start working this on out. There's 1, 2, and then the third one pops out. So there's your OEM tweeter. Now here is the tweeter that came with our speaker set. We're going to strip it down. We'll take the outside cover off. And fortunately for this size, it actually fits in there with pressure really, really well. So we'll go ahead and just, it doesn't snap in all the way, but we can add a little bit of glue. And basically this is just a great tweeter to fit in that OEM location. Kind of clip it in here, it clips into place, nice and snug. I think it's a fantastic solution for this OEM location. Now, just to ensure it doesn't rattle itself loose, we're going to add just a little bit of glue around the outsides to lock it into place. Now, we're going to let this glue set up here. We have our harness that'll plug into the crossover. We're done really with the panel. Now, this crossover is only for the tweeter. This end plugs into the tweeter, the staggered end, and then the flush end goes into any full range signal. It's designed to plug into the second set of terminals on the back of the mid-range, but the mid-range is in the door, so that's not feasible. So this is going to plug into the factory tweeter wiring. Obviously it won't plug into anything. We do need to do a slight modification. Now, unfortunately for this year, there is no tweeter harness adapter really available on the market. So what we're going to do is cut this end off. We won't need this end here. We're going to split the ends. Now the end with the line stripe is your negative. The solid wire is your positive. We'll go ahead and strip these back. And what we're going to do is actually hardwire in these cars our speaker wires into the A-pillars of the van. And we're going to use some crimp caps. So we'll twist wires together and crimp these on. These aren't wire nuts, they're crimp caps. And that's a nice crimped wire-on-wire connection. Now, last thing we like to do is just give this a little bit more protection like we did in the door. So we'll lube this harness with a little bit of high temperature Tesa tape. Here is the tweeter for the driver's side. We actually went ahead and cut off the harness. Because there is no harness adapter, we'll have to hardwire this in, but we left a little length of wire in case this ever has to be reattached. Now, looking at our tweeter, the side with the inline capacitor on our factory tweeter is going to be positive. That indicates that solid white on the driver's side left front tweeter is going to be positive, and then the side with white with a brown or black stripe is going to be negative. Here it is on the passenger side. White with a purple stripe is positive. White with an orange stripe is going to be your negative wire. All right, so with our harness ready, we'll grab our crimp caps, and the glue is now set up on the tweeter. At this point in time, let's go ahead and get everything installed. Okay, so what we did is we twisted wire and wire. We stripped the ends back on the factory speaker plug. Remember, on this side, white is positive. White with a brown stripe is negative. We're going to go ahead and put on our crimp cap and crimp. Okay, just like so. Now we're going to just tuck our crossover right down here where it won't rattle in the dash. And then this end will plug right into the new tweeter. All right, so now let's kind of set our panel right here on the dash. We're going to connect our tweeter to the crossover, and it only plugs in one way, just like so. And from this point, we're going to go ahead and just get this all tucked back into the dash. All right, so with our tweeter done, that basically finishes up this install. All right, so that's about it for this install. If you have any questions on what we did here, go ahead and post a comment below. If you like any of the parts that we use, we'll link them in the description, along with any other helpful tips and tutorials as needed on this Ford Transit. If you want to see how we replace the radio, we can link that video down in the description as well. Be sure to hit the like button if you liked what you saw, and don't forget to subscribe. We post great content on the channel all the time. We'll see you in the next video.